Hello, everybody. This is Steve with Funhouse Film Reviews. I'm here to do a live stream on the Stranger Things Season 3, uh, episodes 1 to 4, just talking about it. We're going to do a little bit of a discussion and a little bit of a recap, and we'll see where we get. This is actually my first live stream where I'm talking, so we'll see how far I get, and hope you guys enjoy. I don't know how my sound quality is. Tell me in the chat. So let's just start off and tell you about my goals. We're going to talk about episodes 1 to 4 in this one, and then later on, maybe this week, I'll do episodes 5 to 8. And we'll try and cover the writing. We'll try and cover cinematography and the sound. All of it, I think, is amazing. Where I stand right now, I think season 3 was incredible. For the first time, I think, in a long time, I watched a whole season of TV without really putting on my critical cap, and I just sat back and enjoyed it. I don't know what you guys feel, but I really don't have many criticisms at all with this season. So let's kind of get right into it. So episode 1 was called Susie, Do You Copy? It was written by the Duffer Brothers, directed by the Duffer Brothers. They actually did the first 2 episodes and the last 2 episodes, and then they passed off writing and directing to other people. But in this episode, right away we notice a different tone to season 2. For me, I felt season 2 was pretty dark, and we didn't really get much from the characters. It was more just battling the mind flare in season 2, and we didn't get as much interplay. And I think there was a focus in season 3 to work the interplay between the characters and the writing, and to make it way more entertaining as writing for the individual groups and writing for the characters, rather than just dealing with a massive conflict and trying to solve it. And I think it really paid off. So the whole first episode, we hardly even see any conflict. We have a scene at the beginning, we have a scene in the middle, and then we have a scene at the end where we kind of see the mind flare being reborn. We see the Russians trying to dig into the upside down, and we're just given hints of it. The rest of the episode is about reacquainting ourselves with the characters, seeing them in their everyday lives post season 2, and seeing what they're up to since then. And for me, it was really, really entertaining. I also noticed a change in visual style. It's way more colorful. The second season, it was very dark, lots of grays. You can see right now, even in the art, the poster art that I'm displaying, very, very colorful art and cinematography. Yeah, exactly, Mustafa. I agree. It was there was a lot of comedy. There was, and I think that comes from writing for the characters and writing the truth of the characters and writing about their everyday lives, instead of just dealing with the conflict that they're about to face. Good writing in a movie really just puts us in the situation of a protagonist, and we get to see their everyday lives before they even deal with the conflict. It isn't until maybe 20 minutes into the movie where they start to discover conflict, and then the rest of the movie is them dealing with it. We find that out that episode 1 is all about just acquainting yourselves with the characters and enjoying them. We get to sit back and relax, and we don't even have to worry about what's going to happen to them in the future. So I want to show an example of that. Hopefully YouTube will let me do this, but I'm going to show an example of that even in the second scene right after the Russians. We see the Russians. We get a scene with Hopper and Elle and Mike. Mike is thrown into this new relationship that Hopper and Elle have already established in season 2. And I think throwing characters into different relationships creates more of a progression in character development. And we see a good example of that here. So let's watch this scene. Right away you can see how playful it is. Something we didn't see in season 2.
You don't like it? No.
And Hopper, I think this season has completely changed. I don't know what happened to the actor, but he stepped it up a notch for this season, and he just blew me away the entire season. He isn't necessarily playing for truth, but he's playing for entertainment, and I found him the most entertaining character of the entire season. I don't know what you guys think.
Hey! Hey! 3-inch minimum. Leave the door open 3 inches. Elle, open this door. Open.
What's wrong?
Okay, so that's an example of how playful the writing has become, and also the integration of new characters into different relationships. I also want to talk about the interesting plot device that Dustin establishes towards the end of the episode, in which he introduces a mystery girlfriend, which I think is pretty funny. The other characters play off of him, and it's a plot device that actually we see dragged out throughout the entire season and doesn't even pay off until the very end. And I think that is wonderful writing. I think the fact that we introduce something in the first episode that doesn't even get paid off until the very last episode is wonderful writing. Yeah, I totally agree, Mustafa. Especially in this season, there's comedy, there's romance, there's lots of action, and so let's show an example of how colorful the visual style is, and so we'll look at the intro to the Starcourt Mall. Here we go. Right away, the lighting is blue. There's some reds. There's a lot of camera movement as well, so there's a lot of flow to it, which makes it very playful and fun to watch. The editing is seamless, and again, I cannot emphasize more the interplay. The writing is snappy. Yeah, so you could see just a completely different visual style to season 2. And here's one last scene here from season 1, where we it's the end of the episode, where we see Billy introduced to the Mind Flayer. And I also think there's a change in Billy as well. In season 2, he was just a complete monster and almost a train wreck. I had a tough time watching him because there was no redeeming aspect to him. But I found even in the first episode and throughout the episodes, he was very charming. You can see right here, he's very charming. And I think it makes it easier to watch. You want your your villains to have at least some sort of redeeming qualities to them. And I think the writers changed his character a little bit on purpose because maybe they got some feedback about how disturbing he was in the second season. But it's interesting. I think it's irony in that he's more humanized in this season, but he is controlled by a monster. And in the second season, he was more of a monster, less humanized, but it was all himself. We'll find out later on in the season how humanizing he becomes, especially when Elle sees into his past.
Who's there? Hey! I said who's there?
So this is where we really truly see the main protagonist, which is the Mind Flayer, showing itself. And it shows itself by capturing Billy, and we don't exactly know what's going to happen to Billy. We'll find out later. Okay, let's talk about episode 2, which is called Mallrats, also written by the Duffer Brothers, directed by the Duffer Brothers. So in here we see that the main characters are now starting to investigate mysteries. They don't exactly know what's going on, but mysteries are forming and they're starting to investigate them. We also get a little bit more character development. We get introduced to some newer characters, specifically Robin, in more detail. Now, Robin, I think her performance was fantastic. And she's played by Maya Hawke, and maybe people don't know, but Maya Hawke is the daughter of Ethan Hawke and Uma Thurman. And this is her debut role, and she just smashed it out of the park. I can't wait to see her in more films and more TV shows. My favorite episode, I think the transition between episodes 4 and 5 really set the tone for the rest of the season. And I think the path of the writing from episode 1 up to episode 4, where we see just such a great slow build and development, and then from episodes 5 to 8 we see the main conflicts being dealt with and the tension growing and everything. The pacing is perfect. I don't think there's a better way to write an 8-episode season than the way the Duffer Brothers did for this one, and I think it's fantastic. So I just think the build up between episode 4 and episode 5, I think those are my favorite, Mustafa. So yes, Maya Hawke just smashed it out of the park, and really I cannot wait to see her in either TV shows or movies. Yeah, we can see her interplay, her introduction into the group of Dustin and Steve here. Dustin and Steve had quite a relationship in season 2, but now we throw in a new character and we see how that relationship and the interplay between the characters develops.
Have a nice day.
Thank you.
Hi,
Hi,
And there she is, Maya
I'm Dustin.
Hawke.
I'm Robin.
Pleasure to meet you. Is
Just
he here?
the character interaction just seems so natural and truthful.
Henderson.
And then Steve comes in and it explodes in fun. The music as well, I think, adds to the playfulness and how fun this is. I mean, how many other TV shows do you see have this kind of fun and playful writing and interaction between the characters? As I was saying, we see new groups forming, so the interactions become different. I mean, we see Hopper and Joyce together. Elle and Max start becoming friends, where they were enemies in the second season, and they actually start to have fun with each other. And of course, Robin joins Steve and Dustin, and we see how fun they become. And of course, Hopper just acting his butt off through the entire series. Hey, Sam, how you doing? Did you see the entire season 3, Sam? And did you enjoy it? Also, Mustafa, what was your favorite episode? Here we see Hopper and Joyce celebrating together after Hopper's victory over Mike. And this is a good example of Hopper's acting ability.
Have been set. Order has been restored.
Wait, it worked?
This is the first day in 6 long, excruciating months that they will not be
And
seeing
I think
each
Winona
other.
Ryder is really enjoying having someone like Hopper to play off of, because she just seems to be relishing this role.
No, stop. It's all you. I'm a puppet. You're the master.
Do you remember
Do we
everything?
remember anything in season 2 that was anything like this? I don't. This is really fun writing and acting, performing.
I'll tell you everything over dinner. I was thinking, Enzo's tonight, 7 o'clock. Hey.
I totally agree, Sam. And that's what I'm here to talk about.
Crystal clear. This is
In case you didn't see the intro, I'm here to talk about episodes 1 to 4, and then maybe later on this week I will talk about episodes 5 to 8. And so subscribe, stay tuned, get notifications of when I actually do go live again, so we can talk about the penultimate episodes of this season, which I think was just absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, I'm a little busy.
And then Hopper again, expecting to have this date with Winona Ryder. Joyce plays it wonderfully.
I'll start off with a scotch. You make that a double.
Very good, sir.
And I think we'll have a bottle of red as well.
Very good, sir.
Were you guys disappointed with anything in this season? I'm just curious. I have a few nitpicks later on I'll talk about.
With just a hint of cherry.
Great. Who doesn't love cherries, huh? All right, we'll have two glasses, please. One for me and one for the lady.
The way he pronounces Chianti, just beautiful. And so let's talk about episode 3, which is called The Case of the Missing Lifeguard. So here we have a new writer, William Bridges, and it's directed by Sean Levy. Sean Levy directs the episodes 3 and 4. Might have directed a few other episodes too, but know that for sure. Okay, so we start to see a bit of a change, especially in Will. He becomes a bit disappointed with Mike and Lucas's interest in girls. Will wants to just stay a boy. He's experiencing a loss of innocence, and we see that in this episode. I think that's really the primary focus for Will in this episode. We also see Nancy's character transform. What we see is she is becoming a stronger, independent woman. She's teased by her superiors, and it gives her a sense of determination to prove them wrong and become her own self. And I really enjoy the arc that she shows at the beginning of this episode and throughout this season. We also, the mysteries are being discovered, and the main characters are now beginning to discover the true nature of their conflicts, the Russians and the Mind Flayer. And we are also discovering exactly what Billy's purpose is. He is building a bigger Mind Flayer. What's up, Abdullah? How you doing? We're here to talk about episodes 1 to 4 of season 3, and just have a little discussion. Talk about our favorite parts. Talk about cinematography. Talk about acting, writing. Talk about the music. I really haven't talked much about the music yet, but Uh, I I think Kyle Dixon and Stein, I think they did a fantastic job and created a really unique sound, and also placed it in the 80s exactly how it should be, with the synthesizer sounds. Even expanding on season 1 and 2, they created a lot of moody stuff and created a lot of fun stuff for us to listen to. Oh, you've only got to episode 6? Well, don't worry. I'm only going to talk about 1 to 4 today, Abdullah. So don't worry about that. So here we are talking about episode 3. It's called The Case of the Missing Lifeguard. And here we open up where Elle is starting to discover that something is wrong and something is going on. She spies on Billy.
Holy shit, I can't believe we're really doing this.
But we also see her progressing relationship with Max, which is a progression from season 2, where they were enemies and now they are
Spin again.
forming into friends.
Against the rules? We make our own rules.
Yeah, Abdullah, I totally agree with you. Like I was saying earlier, I don't think there was really much that I could critique in this whole season. It's one of the first times I've watched from beginning to end and just sat back and didn't even critique. I just enjoyed it.
I'm just saying, I'm serious. He's really gross. Shutting up now.
So Elle didn't have much of a personality in the first 2 seasons, and that's really a character choice, because she, of course, she was a science experiment and didn't have much of a social background. So her personality was very, very limited. But we see in this season that her personality is starting to break out, especially with the influence of Max. Max is trying to teach her how to be a girl and a growing woman, and I really enjoy this new change in her character as well. The tension is starting to grow in this episode, and Ella's discovering that things are not quite right.
I found him. What's he doing? I don't know.
Don't be afraid.
He's...
Yeah, Mustafa, I'm going back and actually I'm starting to watch Westworld. I'm getting caught up on that one. I think that's really, really great. It's deep in philosophy and sociology, and I just think it's a fantastic mind bender. Here, the protagonist and the antagonist discovering each other.
What is it? What happened?
And here we see an example of Nancy's character. And what I was talking about earlier, the teasing that she has to endure just feeds her need to become stronger. She becomes more and more determined.
Careful, it might have rabies. Better get that thing out of here. You don't want it.
Welcome everybody, all the new viewers. Here I am to talk about episodes 1 to 4 of season 3 of Stranger Things. We're talking about acting, we're talking about writing, we're talking about directing, we're talking about cinematography and sound. Everything about season 3 I think was right on, nailed it. I just enjoyed it, every part of it.
Tom didn't ask for proof. He asked us to drop the story.
We see characters develop beyond what we've seen in season 1 and 2, and here's an example of Nancy becoming
The point is
determined.
that you should have thought about that before you talked to them. All right, they're assholes, okay? I get it,
She's
but it's
finding her
just a stupid
path.
story.
Oh, it's stupid?
It's stupid to get fired over.
No one.
I haven't decided yet when my next stream will be. I will be talking about season or episode 5 to 8 sometime this week, I think, maybe Thursday or Friday, around the same time.
You're relentless, you know that? Come on.
And of course, now Dustin and Steve are investigating their own mystery, which happens to be the Soviet transmission. And how cool is this editing technique right here? From the camera to the binoculars. They are investigating the mall. They're looking for evil Russians, and they're looking for someone in a duffel bag, and they're looking for a tall, blonde, evil Russian.
Target acquired.
Where?
10 o'clock, Sam Goodies.
Give me that. Shit. Duffel bag.
And of course, this is being played for comedy, but the music, if you listen, is being played for seriousness, and I think that just adds to the gag. We soon discover that this is not an evil Russian, and they are led astray. I think this just shows that these two characters are fumbling their way around while Robin is really the brains behind the trio. Of course, reminiscent of a famous 1980s movie, Cloak and Dagger. Now, if you watch somewhere else on my channel, you'll see a Jamie Lee Curtis and John Travolta jazzercise video, which I set up to some different music. You should check that out. I really think they're referencing the scene from Perfect here, especially when they start grinding. Okay, and here we are. We're at the last episode, episode 4, which is called the sauna test. And tensions begin to rise. I think this is one of my favorite episodes. This and episode 5 was written by Kate Treffery and directed by Sean Levy again. And yeah, the tension is rising. The main characters are fully realizing what their main conflicts are. And once they realize that, all the secondary conflicts kind of move out of the way, and the focus is more streamlined on dealing with the main conflicts. Of course, the main conflicts are the Russians trying to hack into the Upside Down, and the Mind Flayer assembling themselves. And me personally, I'm trying to figure out for myself how much those conflicts are connected. And I think they are completely separate. I don't think the digging of the Upside Down world has anything to do with the Mind Flayer assembling. I don't know what you guys think. We can talk about some of the controversies. We can talk about, what was it exactly that hit Billy's car when in the first episode when he crashed into the Brimborn Steelworks. There was something that hit his windshield. We know that the pattern that we kind of see is that the rats go into Brimborn, the rats explode, and then something else coalesces and forms. They actually start forming together to build a bigger Mind Flayer. But did a part of the Mind Flayer break off and crash into Billy's car on purpose to lead him to Brimborn Steelworks? I don't know. Yeah, I totally agree with you, Sam. There's, I think in order to have some tension and some scariness, you need to be relieved by some comedy, and if you have those two together, you have just a more enriched experience. And I think the Duffer Brothers really did that well this season. Yeah. So what do you guys think about what crashed into Billy's car, and do you think that there's any connection to what the Russians are doing and what the Mind Flayer is doing? Are they completely separate, or is there some connection? I'd be interesting to hear what you have to think in the chat. So episode 4, we have the sauna test. Now we start to see that each group is becoming fully fleshed out in unique and entertaining ways. We see Mike, Will, Lucas, Elle, and Max. They're forming together. So what we have there are two struggling couples. I mean, Mike and Elle have broken up, and Lucas and Max, they break up and then get back together again, but they're struggling. They're trying to figure out what relationships really are, and then we have the fifth wheel, which is which is Will, and he just wants to be a boy and is frustrated with his buddy's obsession with girls, and he's dealing with his loss of innocence, and they have their interplay together. And then we have Hopper and Joyce, and you know, their sexual frustration. Hopper wants to get with Joyce, and Joyce is really pushing away. She's still dealing with Bob and her feelings for him, but she's starting to, I think, turn around to Hopper. Now, later on, another character gets introduced into that group, and I think another two characters actually. I think the comedy just builds from that. But their interplay is really, really great, as we saw in episode 2, how well they enjoyed playing with each other. And then we have the group of Dustin, Steve, Robin, and Erica. And you know, Dustin and Erica, they're nerd versus closet nerd. And then we have Robin and Steve, and they're confused friends. They don't know exactly what their relationship is, a bit confused. And they're also intellectual rivals. Steve thinks he's the smart one, but Robin proves that she really is the smart one. And of course, Nancy and Jonathan are on their own path, and they're figuring out their own way. Nancy is becoming a much stronger person. Her character is developing, and Jonathan is trying to deal with that. And as I was saying before, the pacing from episode 1 to episode 4 is perfect. Episode 1, we hardly had any conflict at all, and it was just the characters and their relationships. By the time we get to episode 4, the mysteries are being solved, and the main characters are trying to figuring out what they really need to do to solve their problems. So here we go with some tension, some really establishing what the one main conflict is, the Mind Flayer. We see him for the first time here. We see wonderful performances by Billy and from Heather as well, and also from the parents. They play this for truth. They have no idea where they are. They think they're being kidnapped for money.
Hi, Daddy.
But it turns out it's even more evil than that. Once again, I'm here to talk about episodes 1 to 4 of season 3 of the Stranger Things livestream. I'm Steve from Funhouse Film Reviews. Stay tuned for episodes 5 to 8 later on this week. Subscribe and hit that bell so that you can receive a notification when I will actually be going live. I think all the actors nailed it. I think they also had help from great writing. And, you know, they played it for truth, but they also played it for entertainment too. Hopper was really entertaining. A lot of these characters are playing it for truth, which is also entertaining in its own right. It adds to the tension and the scariness of it. The sound of the Mind Flayer, I think, is a really great synth stab here by Stein and Dixon. And here we go with the group assembled. We've got Dustin, Steve, Robin, and Erica. And really, this is where Erica shines. The actress that plays her is fantastic. I just love this scene. And she just gets better and better throughout the season. She was pretty good in season 2, but she just ramps it up in this season. I was commenting with my wife while we were watching it. She later on in the season just is wearing her elbow pads and knee pads. She doesn't need to, but I think she plays it for comedy. The fact that she's wearing her elbow pads and knee pads throughout the rest of the season just adds to the comedy.
Child endangerment.
Erica, hi. We think these Russians want to do harm to our country. Great.
I also think it's funny that these young kids are having a political discussion and turn the political discussion into manipulation of each other.
Oddly, that's totally true. So don't do this for us. Do it for your country. Do it for your fellow man. Do this for America.
Yeah, behind the scenes, I think the actors themselves had a lot of chemistry, and I think they really worked on that this season. I think the actors themselves were really friends, and because of that, the chemistry on screen was much, much better. Maybe there's too much tension in season 2 between the actors. I'm not sure, but there was something wrong, something off. Maybe the directors just had a lot of problems making it, but there just seems to be no problems with this season at all. I'm not sure whether there's going to be a season 4, but really, I'm happy with where season 3 left off. And if there was never a season 4, I'd be so happy. And here we go with our last scene. This is the conflict being ramped up, and our main protagonist dealing with our main antagonist. That synth pulse really adding to the tension. Billy using his acting chops to really play up the scene and manipulate the characters, manipulate his sister Max.
Who made you do it?
I don't know, it's like a shadow. Like a giant shadow.
I really enjoy watching Billy in this scene. I had so much trouble watching him in season 2, but I mean, all the scenes that Billy was in this season, there was some sort of shift that he, as an actor, made, as well as the writers wrote for him, that just made him much more enjoyable this season to watch. And I think it has to do with his ability to go from charming to evil, as well. The writing is he has no control over the evilness in him now. Whereas in season 2, he was evil just to be pure evil. He's a bit more humanized in this season, even though he is controlled by a monster, which is the irony of it.